genius. Very good. I know the theme was plunging on regardless, but I've changed the letter. I hope you'll forgive me. Debbie woke up, as she did most mornings, tuned in to her BBC News app through her chosen topics: world, politics, finance, technology, and her local news, Hereford and Worcester. It took her a few minutes to get to the latter, but when she did, time seemed to stop. She read and read the same article again. Girl found dead in lake. She went on to the group's Facebook page and it had exploded. It seemed it was true. Susan had drowned in the lake the night before, the penultimate night swim of the year. It was August. Debbie reeled and felt sick, her head twirling. She hadn't so known Susan very well. She was one of the chatters, always sharing stories. What was on this morning? What happened at the school gates? Oh no, she had 2 children, the poor things. Debbie sat as if glued to her bed, dumbstruck. She scrolled down her Facebook page, reading comments and looking for answers. She shouldn't have thought it, and she felt immediately guilty, but her subconscious kept throwing Jeff's name to the front of her mind. You shouldn't judge people by their covers, but Debbie had not liked Jeff from the start. Unfortunately, he seemed to like Debbie. He was awkward and creepy. Had he been just another member of the group, Debbie could have avoided him, but he was one of the lifeguards, and he always seemed to be working on the night swims. He was the reason Debbie didn't swim there anymore. She saw a comment from one of the group who she had spoken to several times, another single person without children. She'd written something lovely about Susan. Debbie liked the post. The thoughts in her mind wouldn't let her rest. She sent a text message rather than a Facebook post and simply asked, "Jeff?" The response was quick and clear. He left in June. It was short, and Debbie immediately felt guilty for not sending condolences first. Crap. In any event, the force that was keeping her stuck to the sheets lessened, and she was able to get up and get ready. A month passed, and the funeral had taken place. Debbie went. It was sombre. The group were there, everyone was subdued. Jeff was there. He looked like he was coming over. Debbie turned and walked away. The final night swim of the year turned into a memorial swim. More people than ever turned up. A few were disappointed to hear that you couldn't just turn up and swim, that there were checks and training to be had. They didn't leave, but huddled near the hut. The group turned up, as did Debbie. She got changed in the hut and came out in her distinctive wetsuit, which she'd brought in Sweden. She walked slowly to the water's edge. She was being watched. They lined up on the pontoon, and then, one by one, plunging in regardless. That's fine. This is not a happy ending to this, no, you throw it. They swam in a group, chatting as usual. Debbie was lost in her thoughts. Meetings left her mind, work politics, the fact that her office had been given to someone else, all these left her mind. She swam to escape, and the sensory deprivation of a night swim allowed her mind to calm. She let the group get ahead of her, and they were doing 2 circuits around the bollard and back. The bollard was close to the far side of the lake, where there were trees and bushes and reeds. And tonight was also the place where Jeff was quietly putting his wetsuit on, his flippers, his mask, his oxygen tank. He grabbed some weed as he entered the water. Debbie got into her rhythm and zoned out, a slow and steady front crawl, in turn looking at the darkness below and the darkness above. Stroke, breathe, stroke, hold, stroke, breathe, stroke, hold. Jeff needed to end this. He'd seen Debbie in town the other day, and she too, like Susan, had looked at him with disgust in her eyes. He knew that she could make his life difficult, the way she looked at him. It was as if she thought he was a pervert or something. And once that word is used, Jeff's life would be over. He'd have to leave, he'd have to go, he'd have nowhere to go. All he was trying to be was friendly. He just had to do this. Then he could go back to work. The lifeguard job would be back to him. One drowning is a tragedy. Two, there would be questions. He'd get his job back, and everything would return to normal. He'd liked Debbie, and he thought she would like him. They were kindred spirits after all, but it was not to be. Her reaction when he tried to help her with her wetsuit told him everything he needed to know, told him exactly how she felt about him. He swam effortlessly to the bollard and waited, only bubbles giving away his presence. He felt the water move above him after the first group of swimmers came past. He looked up at their bodies silhouetted against the moonlight. There she was at the back. He'd waited for the second lap. The gap would be greater. He looked down so that his glass face marker would catch the light. He waited. "Where's Debbie Stevens?" the lifeguard asked as the group returned to the pontoon 20 minutes later. Everybody looked round. Gradually panic rose. Ambulances and police were quicker than they'd been for Susan. Rescue teams were on the water within 20 minutes. An hour later, Susan's body lay silently on the waterside. Weeds tangled round her leg.